Have you ever gotten pregnant for your love rival? They called me his stand-in. Now I'm carrying his child while whimpering ah, and begging him to stop on his bed. Part 2. Here's what you need to know if you're just joining me. My name is Seal, and for the last year I've belonged, on paper, in a contract neither of us says out loud, to a man named Noel. He's my sponsor. He pays for my life, my tuition, my mother's hospital bills, and in exchange I exist quietly in the shape he needs me to. It was never about touching. It was always about someone else, the person Noel actually wanted, the one he lost years ago and never stopped grieving. People call that person Noel's white moonlight. The one who got away, the one Noel built an entire second life around missing. His name is Finn Averlane. He came home 5 weeks ago, and from the very first dinner, before he'd even learned how I took my coffee, Finn decided he hated me. Because I was living, breathing proof that Noel had spent a year keeping someone who looked enough like him to fill the space he'd left behind. Noel, for his part, wanted both of us. He never said it plainly, but I understood it in the careful way he handled us. Finn, the man he actually loved and hadn't earned back yet, and me, the version of Finn he could keep close in the meantime. He wasn't willing to let either of us go. I don't think he ever once considered that unfair. Started small. A seating arrangement engineered so Finn faced me all through dinner and spoke to everyone else. A comment about how resourceful I was, how convenient it must be for someone in my position. Pitched soft enough that Priya laughed, and only I heard the word underneath it. Bought. By week 2 I'd learned which floors of Averlane Holdings to avoid in the mornings, and mostly failed to avoid them anyway. "You're doing that thing again," he said, catching me in the lobby. "Where you make yourself smaller so I won't notice you. It's not working, clearly." "No," he agreed, already bored of me. "It never does." Noel noticed nothing. Noel never did. He was too busy watching Finn across every room we shared, recalculating his odds. Week 3 was the wine. It happened at a dinner Noel hosted for Finn's father's old partners. The kind of dinner where I was meant to be present but not seen. I was reaching for the bread when Finn's glass tipped, unhurried, deliberate in a way no one else at the table clocked, and a full pour of red went down the front of my shirt. "My mistake," he said, in a voice pitched for the room, mild and apologetic. Then, quieter, for me alone. "Looks better on you than the shirt did, honestly." Noel does love dressing up his things. The table laughed at the spill, not the insult. Nobody but me had heard the second half. I stood there soaked and burning, more from the words than the wine. "I'm not a thing," I said, low enough that only he'd catch it. "No." He studied me while I dabbed uselessly at the stain, and something in his expression paused. Just barely. The fabric gone sheer and clinging where the wine had soaked through, showing more of the shape of me than I'd have liked in that room. I watched him notice. I watched him decide not to say anything about it. What I didn't know then was what he told me later, much later, when we could afford honesty. That in that exact moment, watching wine bloom down a shirt that clung too closely to someone too delicate to have earned any of his cruelty, something in him had gone quiet with something that wasn't contempt at all. He'd looked at me, damp and humiliated and trying so hard not to show it, and felt, for one unwelcome second, sorry. He didn't show it. Men like Finn don't apologize twice for the same mistake. "You should get that looked at," was all he said, nodding at the stain, already turning back to the table, back to charm, back to the version of himself everyone else got to see. I excused myself not long after. Mumbled something about the stain, about needing air, and found the hallway outside the dining room instead of the bathroom, because I didn't trust my face to hold together in front of a mirror. He followed me. Of course he did. "Careful," he said, leaning in the doorway, watching me press a napkin uselessly against my shirt. "People will start to think I do it on purpose." "You do it on purpose. Prove it." I looked up at him then, and whatever he saw in my face made something flicker behind his. My eyes gone red-rimmed and glassy in the way they always did when I was one sentence from crying and refusing to let it happen. I hated that about myself, how visibly things landed on me, how I couldn't hide hurt the way he could hide everything. He didn't apologize, but he also didn't say anything cruel this time. Just looked at me a beat too long, something unreadable passing over his face before he caught it, and smoothed it back into boredom. Go home, Seal, he said finally, quieter than before. Change your shirt. It wasn't kindness. I told myself it wasn't kindness. But it wasn't the same as everything else he'd given me either, and that unsettled me more than the wine had. By week 4, Noel had noticed enough to be pleased in his oblivious way. Good, that you two are finding a rhythm, he said once, as if the rhythm wasn't built entirely out of Finn needling me and me refusing to break where anyone could see. I didn't correct him. Correcting Noel about Finn never went well for me, and besides, I understood by then that Noel needed us both intact and orbiting him. Neither of us was allowed to actually leave. The gala was week 5. Averlane Holdings, black tie, champagne that cost more than my monthly rent. Finn hosting, since his father's health hadn't allowed him to. Noel wanted me there the way he needed anything that let him stand closer to the life he actually wanted. Does he know I'm coming? I asked. Does it matter? It mattered enormously. I didn't say so. I saw Finn before he saw me, moving through the crowd like water around stone. Every laugh timed to charm, never to linger. Watching him, I understood, in a way I hadn't quite let myself before, exactly why Noel had spent years rearranging his whole life around the hope of being looked at like that. Then Finn's gaze found me, and every ounce of that warmth evaporated like it had never existed. He let me watch him not come over. An hour, maybe more, before he finally did. Appearing at my shoulder near the terrace doors, where the noise thinned into something almost bearable. I'd had 3 glasses of champagne by then, maybe 4, enough that the party had gone soft and underwater, enough that my usual carefulness around him had gone soft too. 5 weeks, he said without preamble. And you still pretend to be delicate and weaker. Maybe I'm not pretending. The words came out looser than I meant them, less guarded than I'd have allowed sober. Maybe you just like thinking I am. Easier to hate something fragile. You're drunk, he murmured, something flickering across his face. Amusement? Maybe, or the first edge of concern he wouldn't admit to. I'm honest, I corrected, swaying a little closer without quite meaning to. Drunk just means I stopped hiding it from you. Something shifted behind his eyes, not warmth, not yet, but not the practiced boredom either. More like a man realizing mid-performance that his audience had stopped playing the part he'd written for them. Careful, he said, low enough that it wasn't for anyone but me. That almost sounded like a challenge. Maybe it was. I meant to say more, meant to hold his gaze the way I had a moment ago, prove I wasn't as unsteady as he thought. Instead, the floor tilted under me, gently, the way it does when the champagne finally catches up all at once, and I reached for the railing and missed it. I didn't fall far. A hand caught me before Finn could even move. Noel's hand, Noel's arm sliding around my waist like he'd been standing closer than I'd realized the whole time. There you are, Noel said, voice warm, oblivious, already steering me against his side like I was something breakable he'd been asked to carry. You've had too much. My eyes were closing before I could stop them, lashes fluttering shut, my breath gone shallow and slow against the wool of his jacket. The last thing I saw, through the narrowing gap of my own eyelashes, was Finn, still standing exactly where I'd left him, watching Noel fold me into his arms with an expression I didn't have the clarity left to read.
Don't forget to like, share, and send this to your family and friends. Oh wait, your family and friends don't know you're into boys' love story yet, do they? If they don't, please subscribe.